Thank you for staying with us. You're still watching The Breakfast on Plus TV Africa. It's time to look at the stories that have made it to the front pages of our national dailies. And joining us to review the papers this morning is Professor Kamilu Sani Fage. He's from the Department of Political Science, Bayero University, Kano. Good morning, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Fantastic. All right, this morning we'll begin with the Punch, and the Punch leads with 20 governors under fire for delaying 70,000 naira minimum wage. The writer here says local government workers, teachers in Zamfara, Cross River, Abia, others yet to get minimum wage. So we're talking 70,000 naira, right, for minimum wage in Nigeria. And for a lot of people, that is quite little because the purchasing power has just really dropped. But coincidentally, on one of our top trending stories this morning, we had Tokwe Faswa, the special advisor to the president on economic affairs, talking about the purchasing power of the naira, despite to what people say. And if you put it side by side with the dollar, so it says naira still has value. But if we look at this, we know in the reality that we don't have enough, or we don't have so much to spend, or whatever we have, we cannot use it to afford a lot, right? But there are still governors who are still owing this 70,000 naira minimum wage in Nigeria, of which this has been put into law for about a year, almost a year. It was April last year. And there's still governors that are owing this. What is your take on this? I want to get your thoughts.
Yeah, you see, it is quite unfortunate that our leadership seems to be very much insensitive or unconcerned with the condition of the citizens. 20 governors, after a year of, signing the minimum wage law, they are still dragging their feet in one way or another, refusing to give. That is unfortunate in the first place. And in the second place, if you look at it, even those states that pay or are paying, they refuse to pay local government employees, especially teachers, primary school teachers. In so many states are not being paid this minimum wage, which is also part of, the insensitiveness of the leadership. And thirdly, in some states that they pay the minimum wage, they now, have heavy taxes on the workers, which means they make nonsense of the minimum wage. So in whichever way we look at it, I think this is uncalled for. Even if it is a military leadership, they will not be so dictatorial like that. Talk less of a democratically elected leadership who earn their position by virtue of the consent of the people. So I think the leaders should put in the condition of the people as their priority, and make sure that this minimum wage is settled and once for all. After all, like you said, this minimum wage, despite what the government supporters are saying, is not enough. It's not enough to ordinary person. I think the advisor was saying that naira has value. Yeah, you can say it has value, but what is the value of the naira? And there are now additional statistics saying that now the food items, the price has come down, and that is why people, are benefiting from this, and so on and so forth. But I think this is all propaganda, not trying to address the reality. Let's say food prices are coming down, but at least the minimum that you have for a bag of rice is the least they even quoted is 65,000. So if we pay somebody 70,000, then he buys a bag of rice, especially a person who has a family. What remains for him? 5,000, and with that 5,000, be able to cover rent, tuition fee for a student, for his children, transport to work, run posts, and health challenges and others. So I think that is why I say, in short, all these things that shows that our leaders are not sensitive to the and aspiration of the followers.
Well, at the end of the day, I think that it's quite important that our leaders have a heart for the people. You know, you know that this money is not enough. At least still pay it because that's what they need to live on. Anyways, another story here on the Punch says, police commands brace for fresh nationwide protest. So there's a protest that is scheduled to take place today. Is the Take It Back movement, and is to look at issues surrounding cyber crime. And coincidentally, today is National Police Day, so of course we commend them for all of their efforts and their service to the country. But what do you think about this? Because the police has said that they're ready to manage the protest, and if we look at what happened in the hashtag End Bad Governance protest, everything was in shambles. Many people were killed. There was just mayhem everywhere. What do you think that the government needs to do? Because I don't think anybody just wants to be out in the streets protesting. If the system was something that worked for them, they would be at home or they would be at their offices trying to, make ends meet. But every now and again, it seems we just have to have a protest because we want our voices heard. How do you think the government needs to react to this?
Yeah, you see, protest is an indication of the failure of the government to respond to the people. Had it been the government is minimum saying that it is responsible to the people, I think a strike will not take place. So the only way that the government should do and the leaders should do is to know that they are democratic leadership. So one thing that they have to do is to provide an accountable government, and that means a government that is responsive and responsible to the people. Anything other than that, I think we are just sweeping the dirt under the carpet. We can use police, we can use security things, to quash, protests, like what happened with End Bad Governance, government, and what is likely going to happen with this roll it back, or whatever they call it.
Take it back.
We are just sweeping the problem. Yeah, we are just sweeping the dirt under the carpet. And we are, putting the thing, the inevitable, we are postponing it to the future. So the best thing is for the leaders to be sensitive and be responsive and responsible to the electorate.
So another story here says Nigeria's debt servicing rises to 68% to 13 trillion naira. So Nigeria's debt servicing rises 68% to 13 trillion naira. In fact, one of the topics that we'll be discussing much later in the show is the fact that we're already taking a $1.08 billion loan, right, from the World Bank. And we know what our debt servicing is like. It takes a huge chunk in our budget because our debt profile is huge. What do you think about this? 68% is a lot to 13 trillion naira. I don't know what year we're going to pay this back. And the honest truth is, I don't know if we can really see the developments that we're taking these loans for. What's your take on this, please?
Yeah, you see, this is a very dangerous trend. 68% in 2 years. I think it shows, how we are blindly taking these loans. And the story is such that it is about news. From the same story, they are saying by December this year, it is going to be more than that. Okay, so I think our leaders have to be worried about these things because, one, we are just mortgaging the future, and we fail to and deliberately refuse to accept the fact that our own economic crisis is as a result of this blind debt borrowing. Look at if you put it to GDP, what is the percentage, and look at the amount of money that we sunk into debt services. If you take our budget, you see that about 1/3 of the budget goes to debt services. And how do you service this debt? You borrow more and try to service what you have. So you see, we are just, instead of going one step forward, we are going one step forward and 2 steps backwards. We are going 3 steps or even 4 steps backwards. And we are just mortgaging, like I said, our future, because what we are seeing now is that this my debts will keep on accumulating and we now pass it on to our children and our grandchildren, and we have this. And at least there's one lesson that we have to take. The lesson is that no developing countries ever develop or get out of this debt trap by going deeper into the trap. So I think we have to, we know that there is not going to be any miracle or any magic for Nigeria to be different from others. So we have to take a cue. Let's do something with this budget and debt. After all, most of the budget is being unnecessarily embezzled. We keep on deceiving ourselves that yes, it is part of the international practice now. Countries have to borrow. Those who countries that borrow and those who are able to benefit from the loans that they get are productive nations. But if you are a consumer nation, you import, how can you expect to get out of the doldrum? And beside importation, there is high level of corruption, which shows the embezzlement of what is being borrowed. So I think the leaders have to be worried, and Nigerians in general have to be worried. And as a democratic people, as a democratic country, Nigerians should not hold on their arms and just allow the leaders to do it. It's a time that everybody get concerned about it, and we now let our leaders know our feeling that we don't want this. If at all the leaders are more concerned with the data and the data countries and the countries that are giving us the, then we decide at the ballot box and say enough is enough, and we change the kind of leadership that we think should take us out of the problem.
Honestly, I feel like every single day we're just plunging into death. Like we just keep looking for more ways to put ourselves right in there, like we're going into a rabbit hole. And like you said, we're a consumer nation. If we're a productive nation, that's a different case. If you look at China, if you look at other countries, they're producing a lot, so they're getting money in. If you were to liken this to a business, the business would have, filed for bankruptcy a long time ago, because you don't have anything. You keep borrowing, and there is no way you're going to repay back that loan. Now, we keep borrowing, obviously, because we're using that to service our debt. But at what point does the vicious cycle end? And who's going to pay these loans at the end of the day? Is it going to be our children's children when they come, the next generation? So we're not even leaving a good legacy, because like they say, a father would leave inheritance for his kids. So what are the inheritance? The inheritances that we're leaving for the next generation of Nigerians to come? That's like a very vital question that we need to ask ourselves honestly. Anyway, still speaking on, the economy and everything, on the Nigerian Tribune, there are two stories here. One says Nigerian airports and airlines grapple with financial woes. But let's look at this one, which is Trump's tariffs. Nigeria in consultation with US and WTO, that's according to the federal government. And the writer here says, tariff may impact competitiveness of Nigerian goods, federal government expanding alternative market access opportunities, and development may create new opportunities. That is according to LCCI. So I don't know what opportunities we're going to be looking at, but I want you to maybe tell us what's something else that we should be putting on our radar if we're not looking at it before, but it's something that we need to start to see right now, because I know that crude is one of the major thing that we export. In fact, I think it's about it takes about 90%, and then the other 10% are just little things. But how do we ensure that our revenue gets better in Nigeria, even with these tariffs that we've seen from the US?
Yeah, it's a simple thing. One word is diversification. When we now keep on depending on one thing, a monocrop economy, that is, we will be vulnerable to this kind of situation. Secondly, we have to look inwards and make sure that when we diversify, we are not just consumers of imported goods. We are also producers. If we are, we can take example from other places. When China in the 70s to date, closed their doors and they take this, look at what is happening to them. They are now the fastest growing economy in the world. And with all the abundant resources that we have, this is what we have to look at. By the time we look at one country, we are at their mercy. Now, with this 10% increase in taxation or whatever that the Americans have put on us, there is nothing we can do. After all, other countries that are producing, they say they are going to take retaliatory measures. Okay, they have already started. The EU has said something. Canada, China, and other countries are taking it. They are not taking it lightly, sitting like that. But we have to do it. Like what they say, a beggar has no choice. Now that we now depend on them, there is nothing we can do. And the way the minister was saying that there are negotiations, I don't think they will ever listen to Nigeria in terms of negotiation. If you look at the volume of trade that they have with Nigeria from their own perspective, it's insignificant to them, but it is us that is a major thing. So already we remain dependent. So that is why we have to be like beggars. We don't have choice except to follow what we have done. Like some other countries have said, I think even Singapore said that they are not going to retaliate because they know the dangers of retaliating by putting sanctions on, the taxes on American sin because they depend on them. Singapore, which is far ahead than Nigeria, is entertaining this fear. Talk less of Nigeria. So I think this should teach us a lesson that at least by now we have to be self-reliant. We have to attempt to be self-reliant and to diversify our economy so that we can create a self-reliant, vibrant economy. Depending on these things is so dangerous as we are seeing it now.
Yeah, I think Nigeria is definitely the country that would have the most impact with this trade war that is going on. But the major story on the Business NG says oil falls below $66, piling pressure on revenue and for the Naira, obviously. So I don't know what we're going to do with this, because if all we're sending out or all we're exporting is oil and we're seeing the price drop as much, that means we're really in trouble. We're in a crisis mode and something needs to be done. So let's take the story on the Business NG. It says NYSC may last 2 years, according to the minister. So as of right now, if you go to the university, coming out, you were mandated to serve your country, and you're mandated to give 1 year to serve your country. In that 1 year, you'll be posted to probably a different state. You'll be posted to a local government, and it could be a school or whatever, but it's your primary place of assignment where you get to serve your country. Now, for a lot of people, they've always felt like 1 year is a lot, but because you have to do that, it is mandated by law, you have no choice. Now, having to extend it to 2 years, don't you think that's a lot? Like, what's your take on this? Especially with the fact that the money that they get is quite little. I think, obviously, 33,000 now, it was moved to 77, even though some of these core members have said that they've never really gotten the new wage that has been allocated to them. So what's your take on this, that NYC may have to last for 2 years?
Yeah, you see, if you look at the initial reasons of NYC, I remember we are about the fourth or fifth set of NYC. Then, it was something that it was meant to really integrate, to create national integration by posting us to, they use to other part of the country, and they do a lot of things. But now if you look at this, the corruption surrounding NYSC and, the wastages that is going around, I think extending it is just, is not going to be anything good. After all, maybe from the perspective of unemployment, some of them will want to be there at least for 1 or 2 years. They can have this. But if you look at the entire purpose of NYSC, I don't think it is worthwhile that we are going to extend it. Instead of doing that, I think let's try to make sure that we now have a kind of functional education, whereby when you introduce this issue of entrepreneurship, you don't in our colleges and universities, you just don't make it an examinable course, but you make it in a way that you make the graduate several lines so that they will come and do it. But I think extending it, I don't think it will solve any problem. In fact, it will compound these things. After all, there are so many calls by some people that our NYSC has outlived its own usefulness, that they can scrap it, they should scrap it. And look at how people are doing it. Some don't even go there, they don't report, they just sign, the attendance and whatever it is and the register, and they will be at their homes and they will be sharing the money with NYSC official. Somebody is posted to a state outside his home, he'll be in his home doing his work, and at the end of the thing, he will get certificates. So I think these are some of the things that we have to look at. We look at the corruption in the system and see how do we better it, and see how we make create what is the ideal purpose of NYSC. Not now that we have politicized it and we have wasted everything.
Honestly, for me, I think at the end of the day, what we want is a system that really looks at our youth and provide employment for them. So with the NYSC, it was, a good way to foster unity with our different states. But looking at where it is now, I don't think, 2 years is necessary. I think what we need to do is look for something that is beneficial to everybody. So if you have to get more entrepreneurs, like you've said, or do the entrepreneurship for these people, why not? Some people obviously have argued that it's a great thing, at least you know that you have a job for the next 2 years, but that's not going to solve the root cause of the matter, and what we're talking about is unemployment. So let's find ways that the amount of people that go into the university, when they come out, they have jobs, not under the guise that you're serving your country and you're just getting stipends for it. Finally, let's look at the Nature News. So there's a story on Nature News that says Abuja launches Nigeria's first solar-powered farmers market. Great fit. Those are things we definitely love to hear. But looking at this is in Abuja, right? One of the things that we've seen in Nigeria is food insecurity. And we know that agriculture is something that has, it kept us for a long time before the oil boom came. So how do you think we need to maybe ride on this wave? Because Abuja obviously has launched its first solar powered farmers market, but it shouldn't just be limited to Abuja. And if what we know right now, we've seen alternative power or cleaner energy has taken over the world because everybody is moving away from the traditional one. So how do you think the Nigerian government can, fund this to the point that we're not just using agriculture to feed ourselves, but it would be a great export and we can make money off it, especially if we're trying to generate revenue right now?
Yeah, you see, Nigeria is a typical case of what in political science we call development of underdevelopment. Meaning, most of the developmental issues are located at the headquarters. Now, if Abuja launches this, it is a good thing, but Abuja is not only Nigeria. Like what is going to happen, probably they will now go to Lagos and probably they will go to state headquarters and leave it. These things are some of the things that we have to look at. Nigeria is diverse, and Nigeria is blessed with so many things. So this kind of project should be extended to all nooks and crannies of Nigeria. After all, look at the abundant sun that we have. Look at the natural this thing that we have. So I think that is what we should have. Besides expanding it to other areas, I think we have to seriously look at the issue of corruption surrounding almost every project in Nigeria. Now, after launching it, after doing this, perhaps by next year, the money will be spent and nothing will be seen on the ground. So we have to address also that issue. So if we are able to do it and we diversify the economy, we look at other sources and this energy thing and agriculture, I'm sure that Nigeria, the glory of the past will be revived. After all, we have just said it. Now, when the oil dropped to 66, we have started gradually. So, if we can diversify and look at all these things, I think that is the only way that we can get out of the doldrum, that we are out of this economic crisis.
Yeah. Well, I hope they really look into that. And like you said, Abuja is not the entire Nigeria. So we need to look for ways to support farmers. We need to look for ways to really invest in agriculture, because that would definitely do us, a lot of good. Anyways, this is where we have to wrap it up on this segment right now. Professor, I want to say thank you so much for coming. It's always a pleasure having you on our program. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Have a wonderful day, sir.
Same to you.
Alright, we're speaking with Professor Kamilu Sani Fage. He's from the Department of Political Science, Bayero University, Kano. And we've just been taking the stories that made it to the front pages of our national dailies. We'll go on a short break now. When we return, we'll be discussing the fact that Serap has urged Tinubu to reject the $1.08 billion loan and to probe missing funds. Please stay with us.